In this episode, we meet Rami Alrudaini, Program Manager at Housing First Auckland, the backbone organisation coordinating collective impact across Housing First providers in Auckland. Rami's family fled war in Iraq before he was born. Social justice was instilled in him before he had a word for it. He came into the homelessness sector from mental health, where he first witnessed people with complex needs being systematically denied access to housing, and has spent his career since building the systems and infrastructure to prevent that from happening. In this episode, Rami talks about what a backbone organisation actually does. He talks about the National Homelessness Data Project, what it is finding, and why welfare conditionality is showing up in the data as a direct pipeline into homelessness. And he talks about Finland, how one country reduced homelessness by 80% over 40 years through 4 things: good data, prevention, housing first as a philosophy, not a contract, and building houses. His conclusion is simple: what is missing is the political will. More information on this interview can be found in the episode description. And don't forget to subscribe to the Char Hub podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from.
Kia ora, Rami, and thank you for joining us today at Te Whai Auckland City Mission. It's really great to be having this conversation with you. I wonder if we could just start with a little bit about you, if you could tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and what actually brought you to this mahi.
So kia ora, my name is Rami Alrudaini. I'm the Program Manager for Housing First Auckland. I'll start with sharing a little bit about my background, my cultural background, because that's really important in terms of shaping my work today and my values and what guides me. My family fled war in Iraq well before I was born in 1980, and we're really involved in a socialist movement there. So that the sense of social justice was really instilled in me from a very young age, brought with us on our journey to Aotearoa, where I started my work in mental health, started my career in mental health. And mental health, working in that setting, was a real aha moment for me, because there I actually saw and experienced importance of housing for people with high and complex needs, but people in the mental health system who were often in that setting discriminated against or marginalized when it came to accessing housing. So that put a real fire in my belly. I think that got my career going. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people who are marginalized and often sat at the periphery of society, not because of their own fault, but because of systems failing them. So I started in mental health, and I moved into housing, supporting people with mental health issues to access stable housing, and eventually came into the homelessness space. And so for me, health, well-being, housing kind of go together. That you can't separate those two things, and you can't deliver them separately.
Thank you, Rami. And that brings us nicely to maybe around your role, and you're Program Manager of Housing First. Could you tell us a bit about Housing First, a background to it, maybe the history of Housing First in a New Zealand context?
Yeah.
And a little bit about the work that you do.
Housing First is an internationally recognized and an evidence-based approach to ending homelessness and supporting people who experience chronic homelessness in our communities. It's quite innovative in that it flips traditional responses to homelessness so that there are no housing readiness conditions. So we don't require people to be housing ready in order to access housing. If someone has a housing need or experiencing homelessness, we provide them with immediate access to housing and then the wraparound support alongside that housing that then sees them thriving in that housing. So housing is not a kind of a carrot at the end of a stick. We see it as a fundamental human right, but also as a foundation for well-being. And without housing, we can't have well-being.
Thank you, Rami. And so you're the Program Manager at Housing First Auckland, which is a backbone organisation. Can you tell us a bit about what a backbone organisation does and what you do there?
So how the backbone organisation came to be, back in 2017 when Housing First was introduced, in Aotearoa. Our visionary leaders actually in the sector had a really strong sense that homelessness is such a wicked and complex issue that no single organisation can solve that alone. And the only way we can address homelessness is if we work together. And so we adopted a collective impact approach. And part of that approach is to have a backbone organisation that supports the organisations doing the mahi on the ground. You know, we hold the vision for those organisations working together, but essentially we're the connective tissue that holds together the collaboration and fosters the collaboration. And we help build trust between organisations and kind of the ecosystem that we work within so that people can get a better service and achieve better outcomes in the work we do.
Nice. Thank you, Rami. And I imagine a lot of the work that you do and the backbone in your team does can be quite behind the scenes work. Can you give us examples of some of the projects that you're currently working on at the moment?
I'm genuinely excited about the work our backbone is leading. It has both, it's not just innovative, but it has national reach and impact. And we work alongside the sector, but peak bodies, people with lived experience to strengthen the infrastructure the sector needs to operate well. And that's what I'm really excited about, is actually we're creating a system to support people in our communities better. How good is that? One of the major projects we are leading is the National Homelessness Data Project, which brings together leaders from across the country in the housing space, and we are looking at critical gaps, data gaps, as well as emerging challenges in our sector, in our work, that need good, consistent, coordinated data and measurement. Hopefully work further and further upstream to address the causes for homelessness and not just be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff.
So really focusing in on that preventative work. And for people who aren't fully aware of maybe what some of those drivers or causes of homelessness are, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we know from our experience and the evidence internationally that homelessness is a complex issue and has many drivers. But to bring it back to the here and now and what we're seeing, the social and economic conditions we're currently facing are actually driving a lot of poverty. People are struggling to afford rent, and lots of people in our community are doing it tough. So economy plays a big role. Also housing supply plays another big role. Access to services plays a significant role. But also government policy, we know that drives, and there's a lot of evidence to show how that drives homelessness, the pipeline into homelessness. And particularly, to give you an example, the tightening of social welfare policies of late, that actually we believe those are directly contributing to the pipeline we are seeing for homelessness in our country.
Nice. And you mentioned the National Homelessness Data Project. What are you seeing reflected in the data recently as a result maybe of some of those changes and tightening of policies?
The biggest trend we are seeing, and it won't be a surprise to anybody, is the increase in homelessness and just the sheer volumes of people presenting at the door of services seeking help. So we're seeing more and more people experiencing homelessness and seeking support from services. So that's one. Another trend that our research has also revealed is people have a poor experience accessing MSD and the social welfare system, and actually being denied or turned away to access that support.
So Rami, can I just circle back to something you said earlier about the importance of lived experience? And I know this is something that you're really passionate about in the work that you do at Housing First Auckland. Could you tell us about the importance of lived experience and engaging with people with lived experience in the work that you do?
So my experience actually is rooted in my mental health. When I started mental health, where there's a beautiful quote I'll share with you, which is nothing about us without us. So it's absolutely vital to bring the voices of lived experience into the work we do. And then coming into the housing space and housing first, within the housing first context, lived experience is absolutely vital. So it's part of the way we work with people in an authentic way, is to actually understand firsthand the experiences of the people who are impacted by our services and systems and policies. So people with lived experience bring vital insights and knowledge and understanding of systems and services. And if we are serious about systems change and transforming systems and services for the people we support, then we must listen to the voices of people with lived experience, because they are ultimately the ones that are impacted by our services and our work.
Thank you, Rami. And I know you and your team are leading some work around this at Housing First Auckland. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We established a National Lived Experience Forum, which is led by our wonderful rangatira Awatia Hawk, who's our lived experience lead that was working with the Backbone. And so he's leading a forum made up of people with lived experience across the country, mainly from Housing First providers. And so they come together monthly to kōrero and share wisdom and knowledge and insights around their work, and share ideas and resources around how we strengthen their work and embed their views and lived experience deeper and deeper in the work we do, because we know it makes it so much better when we listen to people with lived experience and have them influence the work we do.
That's really powerful work, Rami. And has there been much engagement from people with lived experience across the country?
There has been tremendous engagement from people with lived experience across the country, but also what we're seeing is engagement from leadership within organizations. People, leaders, staff are really interested in this. This is not just about people with lived experience wanting a space. Actually, there is our organizations, our sectors are calling for it, because they see the value in embedding lived experience in our work, in everyday work. And so everyone wants this.
So I know, Rami, you not only support a lived experience community of practice through the work that AOT is leading, but you also support a national community of practice for Housing First. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that and the work that you do in that collaborative space?
The Housing First Community Practice is a national forum that is made up of Housing First providers across the country. And so, at their request, we created a forum where kaimahi and leaders can come together and share knowledge, insights, resources, best practice around Housing First, but more importantly, actually, how we support people to thrive in their homes. This community practice actually really supported us to grow and expand our collective impact and the collaboration across the country. And that's really exciting, because we know when we come together and work together, we go further and we support people in a much better way.
Nice. And when you've mentioned collective impact a number of times, I know it's the model that your work is based on. What is collective impact?
Collective impact is an evidence-based and a structured approach. It's creating a structure that then helps bring organizations together around a common agenda, common vision, common priorities, so that we can have a unified voice and actually be more aligned in our work. And when you have a structured approach and a common vision, then you can build trust and actually go further in the work together.
Because collaboration isn't easy. So it sounds to me like that's really about putting some good intention and structure around how you collaborate. Is that correct?
Well, collaboration is never easy. In fact, it's never been easy to do this work. And I don't think it will ever be easy. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think there's real strength of that comes with diversity, and different organizations with different views and worldviews are coming together and problem-solving issues that are so important to us and our country and the people we support. But like I said earlier, if we work in silos, I think that's really detrimental to achieving the lasting change we need to see in our communities. And so the only way is to work together. So if we can put our egos aside and focus on actually why we all here, it's for the people we support. And then that way we can then, through collective impact, actually pool our resources, our knowledge, our wisdom and support people with every resource we have.
And where have you seen this working well? Because you mentioned Housing First is an international model. What's happening overseas in relation to Housing First?
The best case study that I get really excited about is Finland, the Y Foundation. The Y Foundation is the 4th largest community housing provider in Finland, and they operate in the capital of Helsinki. And so they have had amazing success ending homelessness. In fact, over the last 40 years, they've reduced homelessness by 80%. You know, whilst the rest of the Western neoliberal world has gone in the opposite direction, they've actually seen a steady decline. And if you talk to Joha and the Y Foundation and our friends, colleagues from Finland, they tell you it's really easy to end homelessness. It's not rocket science. There's 4 things they've done, and they articulate them so clearly. One is we need good data around need, but also to measure impact, and also to help us allocate resources, you know, in terms of services and programs that people need. And then the other element is around prevention. So, you know, we know there's a growing pipeline into homelessness, and for every 20 people we house, there's often more people arriving at the street. And so you've got to be working further and further upstream and identifying those upstream issues that are contributing to people becoming homeless. And so you focus programs or services around prevention. In some cases, even early intervention is also critical. You know, we've got, I know I've seen examples where they've worked in schools to support young people who might be at risk of homelessness, so that, you know, that they can just change that trajectory right from a very early age. And so that's some of the really exciting work that we should be doing as a country if we want to block the pipeline into homelessness. And then alongside that is support for people experiencing homelessness today. So that what they have done is they've used Housing First as a philosophy, not a contract. And what that means is when you ask them, what is Housing First to you? They'll talk about housing. We believe housing is a human right. Someone needs a home, they'll get a home. The goal is to permanently house people, so somewhere stable. They run their transitional housing programs there from a Housing First philosophy. So the focus then becomes on permanent housing at the other end, not a temporary solution. So all parts of their system respond to people in need from kind of a unified vision or philosophy, so that actually the system is working together, not competing with each other, to help people.
So those Housing First principles then underpin the whole system rather than just a program.
Exactly, or a contract. And the last one, the last really important thing to note is they built houses. They spent the last 40 years investing in housing and creating more supply to meet the range of needs that they are seeing in their communities.
Wow. So there's a lot of learnings to take from Finland in particular.
Massive.
In terms of what we can do.
We'd like to thank Rami for taking the time to speak with us. More information on this interview can be found in the episode description. And don't forget to subscribe to the Char Hub podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from.